some that we liked and some that we didn't. So we sent out these ads and started getting some calls, started fielding the calls, asking if they're interested in selling. We found out that the seller of a particular property was in Mexico, which absentee landlords are great because, you know, they're dealing with the property from afar, and the property manager who was managing the property wasn't doing the best job. She was letting things go. Tenants were paying cash, you know, each week of the month. Like, when we asked for all the data after we got under contract, she had a spreadsheet, and there would be a section for week 1 payment, week 2 payment, week 3 payment, and it was a nightmare, you know. So we had to go through all of this stuff. So this example, it was a 35-unit building in Kingston that we got under contract. We initially offered $1.35 million, and the seller accepted that offer. We started doing our due diligence, and we realized that, you know, based on his Schedule E's, which is, you know, a tax document that the seller files showing how much income that property produced, the income was a lot lower than what the valuation we had offered. So we had to renegotiate and say, listen, Mr. Seller, even if we get a loan from a bank, which was what our intention was, they're gonna do an appraisal, and based on the market cap rate and how much money this property is producing, it's gonna be valued at $1.15 million, and we know that because we've talked with some appraisers. So we said, you know, do you wanna lower your price $200,000, or is actually a little more? And he's obviously like, no. And so, you know, we go back and forth for a few weeks, and the seller had some things, you know, change in his life that allowed him to carry 99% of this transaction. So he had a windfall of some money and came to us and said, hey boys, you know, I like what you guys offer. You know, I like the price that we had agreed upon. If you'll still move forward at that price, I'll finance 99%. So we got into the building with like $13,500 down on 35 units. So then, you know, this is one of those situations where we overpaid for the building based on appraisals and the loan to value, whatever. We overpaid.
You
But
put 13,000 in.
Yeah.
You got 35.
Right, and at the time, that property was generating $96,000 per year in profit, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously, and that was after the mortgage and everything. So basically, we took that property, and from day one, we got the tenants all on our lease. And this is a lot of work. I mean, this is 7 or 8 months of working every single day on this deal and getting the tenants to pay on time and creating systems. And, you know, it sounds easy now when you hear it, but it was a lot of work. So from day one, we got them on our lease, which you want to have them on your lease because, you know, you have the terms, you create the terms. And if they leave, then, oh well, you'll use the cash flow to fix up their unit. So then after we got them on our lease, we started billing back the utilities. So we signed everyone up on month-to-month leases so that we could continue to change things. If there was turnover or if the tenant was a pain in the ass, we would just say, see you later, here's your 30-day notice. So we started billing back the utilities. So in commercial real estate, anytime that you increase the net operating income of the building, it increases the value by a multiplier. So basically the market cap rate in Kingston at the time was 0.08, 8% cap rate was the market standard. So like, for example, from day one, we had $16,000 in insurance is what the seller was paying. So we had different quotes from companies, and we got the insurance down to $8,000. So just making that 5-minute phone call increased the value of the property $100,000. So that's the exciting thing about this type of real estate. So we continued to do all these changes. We started billing back the utilities.
What do you mean billing back the utilities?
So like we have the tenants put the utilities in their name.
And you were, the owner was paying all the utilities before.
Correct. Yep.
One by one.
Yep.
You could do
So-
it with water, electricity, gas.
Here's the crazy thing. Within 5 years of us buying the building, they separately metered all the units. So all the units already had their own individual meters. So like we walked down in the basement and we're like, is this right? Like, these are meters, right? We were blown away because it was such an easy switch. We just asked them to pay, and they did. So through that, you know, getting them on our lease, we started increasing rents after we started fixing up the units. We used the cash flow that we had from that building to fix up the units as they went vacant. So, you know, with 35 units, there's always turnover. I mean, you have one a month that leaves. So we would just fix up their unit as soon as they were out, and we had the cash flow to do that. So throughout the course of the year, we started making all those changes. And then in September, we realized that, you know, we had done pretty much everything that we were able to do with this building. So so here's, with the seller, we did 3 years, interest only at 5.5% interest. So he was happy because he's getting $6,000 a month, and he's not managing the property anymore, right? And that's interest only. So after 3 years, that bumps up to like $8,000. So we're making our payments to him. That's coming from the tenants. So, you know, now that we get the tenants, you know, behaving, we're making a lot more money because we're, you know, diligent in putting up notices and whatnot. So we make all these changes, and then around September, we told the seller, hey, we've done everything that we want to do to this building. We're entertaining the idea of a cash out refinance. So, you know, he said, okay, great. He had the first right of refusal. That was in our contract. And then we had like a prepayment penalty for the first 3 years. And the reason that this was a benefit to the seller was if he sold the property, he was going to have a lot of capital gains. So by delaying his receipt of that money, he was going to be able to get interest money that will offset those gains, right? So anyways, so it was a benefit to him. So we approached him and said, hey, we're thinking of doing this cash out refinance. And we were working with a bank at the time, and we were going to have the bank do the cash out refinance. So the bank said, okay, you know, and the seller entertained the idea, hey, I might want to do this, you know, let's talk about it. So the bank said, you know, if we're going to fund it, we need to order the appraisal, because they're going to have to be, you know, on the paper saying that they ordered it. So we had the bank order the appraisal. The appraisal came in like late September for $2.58 million, and we had bought the building 8 months earlier for 1.35. So over the course of the year, through using seller financing, we increased the value of this property over $1 million. So, you know, with that type of real estate, you can get loans at 80% of value. We approached the seller and said, hey, you know, we want to do a cash out refinance. How much cash do you got? And he's like, well, how much do you want? And we were like, well, you know, we think that we could get around 400,000 if we were to get, you know, traditional financing. So he said, I've got, you know, 387 that I can give you. So he said, done deal. So we refinanced, wrote a second mortgage. He gave us the funds. It was all through a title company. We did it all legit. So, you know, that's the benefit. You know, you can find these deals. They are out there. You just have to be willing to look through the weeds, beat the bushes, and make the calls. And, you know, you too can have a great property come your way.
For those people who got confused by what you said, you ended up with the $400,000 in your pocket, and who owned
Yes.
the building?
We did.
You owned the building and you still had to pay him, or no?
Yep. So we increased the amount of money that we owe him by the 400,000.
Oh,
So initially
so
we
you
owed
owned 400,000 more?
Yeah.